when I'm getting to the bag, ayy. Got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast, ayy. Let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do, or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Monday, everybody. I know it is miserable weather conditions in decent portion of the country. Where I'm from, back in Wisconsin and Minnesota, it was like -11 this morning. Ohio got there's just a ton of snow that landed, and I hope you're all safe out there. And ironically, my guest today posts a lot of awesome videos. Well, they're not awesome, but they're very informative videos out there with cam footage and everything else. And we're going to be talking about, your DOT and compliance and everything that's out there. So I have my man, Rob Carpenter, back on the show. Rob, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Hey, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing well. And, it's going to be interesting to see how many more videos you all post coming out of this latest weather spell out there. And, I love what you and your company do out there with the cam footage and everything else, and the educational insight you guys show from that. So for people who don't know you or the company you're with, man, give us a little background on that.
So Truck Safe is where I'm at, and basically we do a little bit of everything. Compliance, we've got training programs, we've got Truck Safe University, we've got we do expert witness work for highway accident litigation. We're kind of everywhere. No matter what you need, in most cases, we can help you out.
Yeah. It's, and I think it's good though, too, because I know your history, you drove, right? You have that seat experience out there. So I always love talking to people who've done the work, and then they're out there helping the individuals kind of overcome a lot of those things, right? Because I feel unfortunately, when you're out there starting a business, you want to think you're going to have it all figured out and everything's going to go great. But it's only a matter of time, especially when you're driving trucks. It's only a matter of time before something happens, and you need to be prepared. And how many times have you talked to people and it was after the fact and you're like, man, this is gonna be an uphill battle because you didn't have A, B, and C done here?
Well, I mean, I think one of the problems is 80% of what you need to know to drive a truck, you learn in the truck. So, I mean, a lot of it's trial and error, and hopefully it's mistakes that you can learn from, and it's not a one and done and you're dead after that mistake and you don't get to learn from it. But unfortunately, that's kind of become the name of our business, and it's not getting any better. So I think some of that goes to your main topic of skilled and qualified, and who you hire and put in the seat. But I try to break up the videos. I don't want to do 2 winter videos one day after the next, because it gets old. But being yesterday and today were pretty catastrophic for most of the country, I kind of just threw it out both days.
Yeah, it's but again, I think for me, it's the education piece, that getting prepared for that stuff, right? Because it's not very often that there's freak weather events that happen, right? I feel as much as the weather people are off, they are right at times as well. And for me, it's being prepared, right? I look at it as how many people driving over the Rockies this weekend left home without chains. And if they did, were they not paying attention at all, right? And I feel that comes into the job that's out there. And then same thing, anybody who's driving across the Midwest this weekend, did you not slow down when you were driving through snowstorms and stuff like that? So it's unfortunately, these events happen, but dude, you can learn from this. And the amount of content and the style of content you guys put out there, I feel that is geared towards improving, right? Nobody wants to see accidents happen, but not all of them are, it's not going to prevent them from existing. But I also feel man, you got to be more in tune to your surroundings when this stuff happens, especially if you don't have extensive experience driving in that weather.
Yeah. I mean, it's all educational. I mean, you you can't come down hard on everybody. I mean, it's all a learning experience, right? Well, I hope it is for everybody, but some maybe not. But you know, when I start my first winter experience in a truck, I was in Denver. I did not have chains, and we're talking like real winter. Like this was January for them, and I had to get from Denver to Durango, Colorado, and we didn't have at that point the GPSs and the cell phones that we have now. We weren't there yet. I think the most we had was like a Motorola StarTAC was the flip phone that we experienced back then. But you know, the way being ignorant to driving trucks, especially in Denver, was, hey, the shortest route from Denver to Durango, Colorado is actually through Grand Junction. So I'm like, hey, you know, I'm going to pull these 2 double trailers down from Denver through Grand Junction in January to Durango. And it saves you a huge amount of time rather than go the safest route. So I'm like, let's do it. But as you start to get into Grand Junction, you realize, especially when you start to hit Vail and then you continue down south, further into Grand Junction, you've got snowdrifts that are taller than the truck and avalanche warning signs. And then you get to the rest area up there, and the whole rest area is completely covered with snow. Like you can't even see the building anymore. So you realize that I should have been a little more prepared for this. So sometimes it's ignorance, and sometimes it's the carriers that are putting their drivers in these positions with inexperienced drivers. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have been on the route. No one even mentioned chains. No one told me anything about this. But you know what I learned the first trip to Denver? I'm going to have chains. I'm going to have food, water, supplies, things to keep me warm in my truck. I'm not going to go if I think it's not safe, and I'm going to make sure that my route and my trip are on point. So I think, you know, you learn that from experience, but you could also learn that from people giving you the heads up. And that's what we hope to kind of point out in a lot of these videos.
No, I agree. And it's also, you guys are working with people on the back end as well, right? Like, you know, keeping clean records and, you know, and everything, and keeping that organized. Like, I could only imagine it has to be you know, it's kind of the title of the video, right? If your DOT file, like if your stuff isn't organized, man, it's got to be a legal minefield. I'm sure attorneys are like, I love my attorney. I love my insurance provider because they keep me in line. But like, these guys are hoping you don't have this stuff in, like, taken care of, because like they're looking for a slam dunk case. They're looking to, you know, unfortunately, I've said this on their show a lot, and I feel like we're still very much there, man. Most drivers are guilty until proven innocent. Like they really are, because they got the big logo on the side of the truck. They are very visible, and you can definitely tell if something goes wrong with the truck in an accident and stuff like that. So like, how are you guys, like, what are those things that you guys can point out right away that are like very obvious signs of like, this is where we're going to start to get this cleaned up, because this is not what it should be?
Well, I mean, usually when I start with a customer, whether it's, let's just say, one of the biggest retailers in the world or down to the smallest mom and pop, it's like you have to see where they are. Like right now, like what is your current position of your programs? Do you have DQ files? Do you have what you need in place in terms of hours of service and preventive maintenance programs, and the hot topics that come up during highway accident litigation, especially training? Training's always something that comes up, and policies, and do you have the right language in those policies, if you actually even have the policies? So it can go all over the board. But one of the important considerations when I go into a business is, what mode do you actually operate in? Are you short haul? Are you over the road? Do you do heavy haul? Are you all open deck carrier? Or are you just vocational landscaping fleets under 10,000 pounds or under 16,000 pounds? So all of these things come into effect, and all of them matter when it comes to prescribing you a plan and a process and a system that's going to work, right? And another part of it is, are you planning on staying with 5 trucks that you have now? Or are you planning on scaling and getting purchased by private equity and all of a sudden buying 15 businesses in the next 8 months? So there's so many different things that come into my mind when I'm looking at a business and trying to prescribe a program. Do we just need something like, hey, something right now, you're small, you're always going to be small? Or, hey, do we need something for, you know, that's more advanced, that's going to be able to scale with you as you grow? So it's all over the board.
How big of a risk are carriers undertaking if, you know, even if they have a clean driving record, right? Like they're safe, everything out there, but like their paperwork's a disaster. how big of like an exposure point is that?
Well, paperwork disasters can call you through a lot of issues. I mean, even in compliance reviews, there's putting a good foot forward when the agent comes to your location to do this compliance review. But if you have paperwork that's a disaster and they have to weed through, it's just going to piss them off. And the next thing you know, you've got a pissed off agent instead of one that's going to be more amenable to helping you out and you might turn that compliance review from something that might have been educational into something that's very punitive just by not having your stuff in order. But when it comes to going to court, I mean, you want to make sure that you've got policies in place that have the right verbiage, that don't have a lot of holes in them. You know, Werner's big issue in Texas was they had a policy that said in winter conditions, your drivers as trainees can't be on the road. Well, this guy was a trainee. Did he cause the crash? No, but that policy caused him huge exposure because he was still on the road. So you got to make sure that you're putting in the right policies, the right verbiage, whether they're too long or too short. You know, there's always a sweet spot with everything, but huge liability comes from not managing the paperwork on the admin side.
How like, you know, at what size of fleet do you guys start advising the organizational aspect of it, right? Of like, hey guys, we got to start building out this infrastructure internally, because I look at it as, you know, if you're an owner op, or maybe it's you and your brother just driving, you know, you guys are both owners of the company and stuff like that. Like, is that when you should do it? As soon as you go from one truck to 2 trucks?
I mean, I think everybody's looking for that sweet spot. Like, when I get to 10 trucks, should I have a safety director, or what does that metric look like? And I don't think that there's a hard metric in place, but what I like to advise people is the new entrant program with FMCSA, right? Like, that's designed to make sure when they come out in that first 18 months to make sure that you're ready to operate. Their goal is not to come there to be punitive with you. Their goal is to come there to make sure that you have what you have in place to run a proficient, safe operation. So from day one, when you start the company, you should make sure that you have clean driver qualifications and processes in place. You've got whatever, if you're an ELD, if you need an ELD, or if you're going to keep it on timesheets because you're short haul or ag exempt. You want to make sure you have everything in place, from policies to training to procedures. Now, the scalability of those programs, processes, and systems is always going to change and become more advanced as you come on. But if you're trying to start out with 1 guy or 2 guys or 10 guys, do you need the 10 streets of the industry and the motives of the industry? Probably not. Like, you don't need all of that. It's not a need for you at that size. I mean, you can keep your stuff in manila folders. But when you start to get to that 10 trucks, 20 trucks, especially if you're working with a very lean human resources model, you may have 2 people in the office, or it might just be you running the company and doing the paperwork. That's where you might start looking at other tech tools like 10 Street, Motive, et cetera, to kind of like, hey, we need some tools to help us scale the human aspect of this business.
Do you think the FMCSA or the DOT is ever going to switch to more of like a digital wallet? Like, I know like you have the like the clearinghouse aspect of things, and like, do you see them ever shifting and having that, and especially like with identity theft and fraud being at what it is, do you feel like they're going to take on more of a digital wallet of like, hey man, we got to have every, like, driver profiles, right? Like, you got your CDL, your truck, it's through your ELDs. Now upload your medical card, upload all pertinent information into this file so we can store it here. Do you see that ever becoming a reality?
That's a tough one, because it takes a huge amount of money to store people's stuff. And I doubt the government is ever going to want to take on that responsibility, for one, but that cost for 2. But the good thing about compliance reviews, like modern day compliance, we didn't deal with this as much before COVID, but when COVID hit, compliance reviews went off. You know, we just didn't have them because people weren't going out. They weren't allowed to go out and do compliance reviews. But what happened because of COVID is they started kind of refining the compliance review process. So they kind of always have gathered some information on the front end before they come to your business, kind of like an initial prerequisite off-site portion of the compliance review. But now they've kind of gotten to this point where you get this list of, hey, I am Agent Vaughn Stevens, and I'm going to be auditing your business. We need you to upload the following documents to the portal. So now generally before you have a compliance review, you're going to upload all those items that they've requested. That's going to give them like a big picture view of what you have. And generally they already know what your problems are. They know what the answers to the questions are that they're going to ask you. They just want to see if you're going to be upfront with them. And then when they get on site, or just before they get on site, they're going to tell you, hey, like, these are the folders we want. Usually they kind of dumb that down to, we want driver files and vehicle files for vehicles and drivers who have been in crashes, who have violations. And then from there, they kind of build out their sample for the rest of the review. So a good portion of it is you storing the data and then uploading it to them before they get there.
Do you think that, because I personally think, the current administration right now, like, this is the most visibility into the industry I think I've ever personally seen, experienced, or even paid attention to, from like DC and Capitol Hill, and, specifically to the ELDs. Do you think they are going to continue to crack down on all of that stuff? And is there a way where a carrier who has been proven to be using a fraudulent ELD, they might not have been doing it, right? Like, I'm not trying to say any of these carriers are guilty of it, but the ELD provider that they were servicing, or like that they had has now been removed. Are they looked at in a different light from the auditing standpoint, where it's like, hey, these guys have, this ELD provider you were using for these last couple of years has been, shown that they let you retro your logs, even though you haven't done that? Do you think that that's going to cause more scrutiny for those carriers if they haven't done it?
Yeah, it's always going to, you're always going to have more scrutiny in cases like that. But, I think what, and when I was at FMCSA last week, one of the big things that I pushed is accountability for carriers. And that's from somebody who's owned a business and driven trucks and run large businesses. It's not that I'm just hard, trying to be hard on carriers. It's that we have an accountability problem with carriers. We have really good carriers who have a really good grasp on understanding their moral, ethical responsibilities to sharing the road with people. They're looking at who they hire, they're looking at what they buy, they're looking at who and what they put on the road, and they're scrutinizing it to the nth degree, right? Those are your good carriers. But we know we don't operate in that world where everyone is a good carrier. You have carriers out there who are skirting the rules, looking for ELD vendors where they can get that data manipulated on the back end to give them more time, which means more revenue. So I think you're always going to have those carriers that are going to skirt the rules, look for those shady ELD vendors, look for ways around the rules and the regulations to kind of increase that bottom line figure and the revenue that they can produce.
Yeah, because I have carriers on here, and I want more, right? Like, I truly want more fleets to come on this show, more drivers, everything, because I feel like it's one of the few open format style shows that you can come on and just tell it like it is, right?
Yeah.
And I look at it specifically with the DOT and the FMCSA. I hope they find some way to reward the carriers who are doing it right, whether it's like a tax break or something, right? Like, I'm just kind of throwing stuff out there because I feel like if there isn't a harder crackdown on some of this, I don't want to see the right carriers go out of business, and then our roads are flooded with people who are able to side skirt because they're reincarnating, getting multiple insurance policies. They're doing everything that people in the industry are very aware of what goes on out there. I just hope that it's not too far down to where it's like some of these carriers who have been in business for, multi-generation. How many multi-generation trucking companies do you guys represent out there? And it's just like, they're kind of coming to the point where it's like, it's getting harder and harder to make a dollar. Why are we going to continue to operate ethically if it actually makes it harder for us to find freight out there?
Yeah. Well, I think there's only so much you can do in terms of rewarding them, unless they come up with some way to do it. And I'd have to sit and think about it. But really, it comes down ultimately to holding the ones accountable who are costing those good carriers, right? Yeah. And maybe that's your reward, is taking the bad carriers off the road. And I say that because, there's a case that's getting ready to go to trial. I've written on this thing probably 4 or 5 times at FreightWaves and, X, Substack. And that's the Gazanol, the Westfield Transport case up in the New England area, where they killed like 7 or 8 Marines in the Jarhead Motorcycle Club crash a few years ago.
Yep.
And one owner of that company, like they know what the NTSB tore their company apart. There's a well-documented report from the NTSB and the FMCSA on what that carrier did, and there's evidence of it out there, right? Like we know what happened. And one of the big pieces of that was manipulating the ELDs and putting bad drivers, unqualified drivers on the highway. And it's all spelled out right there in public record. You can go download it yourself and read it. But one owner went to trial, got 2 months in jail. That's it. 7 people dead, 2 months in jail. The other brother was offered a no-time plea agreement. He turned that down. So he's going to trial in March. So I think, that's setting the tone for the entire industry. When you're offering someone who killed a carrier, an owner, who we know we have documented evidence that they did everything they possibly could do the wrong way, and you're offering them no-time plea agreements on a 7-fatality crash, that's a problem, right? So the rest of the industry looks at that and says, well, crap. I mean, I could run the same way, and there's no accountability in it, right? What's going to happen? What's the worst that's going to happen? A no-time plea agreement? So I think the biggest piece is maybe not necessarily rewarding them directly, but rewarding them by taking the bad carriers who are costing them money off the road.
I personally think, and I've stated this on this show numerous times, they should set the punishment so severe that it makes everybody who's doing it the wrong way truly question, is this worth doing moving forward?
Yeah.
Because I feel like, and dude, this is just like kind of like for the legal environment in our country in general, right? Like I don't want loopholes for anybody, right? Like I want an equal playing field. And I truly feel like there's a way that we could come there. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take time, but I feel like there's no repercussions for your actions, right? Like that guy, like 2 months in jail, 7 people died, 2 months in jail. What a and then on top of it, 2 members of the military as well, right? So that's like an even bigger slap in the face, because how many drivers out there are former or active military that now transition into trucking? And I look at this that is kind of like the core reason why people are able to commit fraud, to break the law, because there is no fear of repercussion. Like I just want to see penalties so severe that it makes everybody who's doing it knowingly question, we should probably get this cleaned up right now, or maybe we should just go away, because they're coming and they're coming hard.
Yeah, but we don't have that. We've never really had that. I mean, where you see accountability is drivers like Danny Tanner, who did the wrong thing, right? Like there was evidence showing that Danny Tanner in the Arizona crash where he killed 5 people, he was on TikTok at the time of the crash when he rear-ended this car, it burst into flames and burned everybody alive, right? Like we know that. And he got 22 years in prison as the driver who made that decision to behave that way while driving a tractor trailer. The carrier he's good. Like there's no repercussion there. But the question is, like, we know you had dual facing dash cams in that truck. The guy's always been on TikTok. We can go look at his TikTok right now, watch the history of him driving your truck on TikTok, and you clearly would have known it. So why didn't you do something about it? And when that goes to a litigation phase, the question becomes for them in discovery, it's like, show us all the events that this driver has had on video in the past 6 months that you should have known about. And when you produce that, and then you show, well, had you actually taken action the other 197 times you caught him on the phone, he wouldn't have been on the highway to kill our 5 people, right? Yeah. So that's kind of where you get to that high nuclear verdict phase, and whether you actually face any accountability outside of payment is something that's not the norm for carriers. It's often the norm for drivers, but not always for the carrier that's employing them and putting them in the seat. And I think it was Richard Wright was his name in Virginia. He got 4 years in prison, and he killed a 24-year-old girl, Ashley Chapman, on, I think that was 23. And he ran into the back of her, parked at she was stopped at a traffic light. He fell asleep, but he was part of a municipal waste hauler, as was Danny Tyner. And they emphasized pay by the load. We give you more money, the more loads you can run between Monday and Thursday. When the dumps are open, we'll pay you more. So they run like crazy. They're on short haul, so they don't have ELDs. Driver gets 4 years when he causes the crash, but there's no repercussion for that municipal waste hauler, right? Because it's just what it is.
How does that not, how is there so much separation between the driver's actions and the carrier's actions of like, because I feel like that's negligent across the board, right? Like, especially like if they're, I just like, I don't believe in coincidences, Rob. I feel like if they're allowing one to do it, that means everybody's probably doing it in one way, shape, or form, right? I'm sure there's exceptions to that out there, but negligence, you don't just like get to that point. Like there's a buildup of not paying attention that comes to that. So like, how is that where there's no accountability by the person who was employing them, who could have probably stopped that from becoming a thing if they would remove that driver from the cab of the truck prior to that accident or accidents? We'll go plural there because we're talking about two separate cases.
Well, they parallel a lot in a lot of ways. And actually the company that was the waste hauler in Ashley Chapman's death was they were purchased by the carrier who was Danny Tyner's employer. So a lot of these bad carriers run in tandem. Like they're associated with each other in one way or the other, or they're affiliated with each other, or they do business together. So they, the accountability piece often comes down to litigation, and that's often your only accountability piece for carriers. There's not usually any jail time associated with this stuff for carriers. Often comes down to jail time for the driver, but civil penalties and civil settlements and cases and verdicts for carriers, which is crazy because a lot of times they're limited on how much they can collect based on the policies that they have, because where does the access go? If you get $100 million judgment, you've got $1 million policy. That's a lot of excess. And if the company's not big enough or they're underinsured, where do you get that money from? So is there really accountability in it? And I'd say that oftentimes there's not. But, one of the problems we have in these cases, like with Ashley Chapman, they didn't ask for some nuclear verdict figure in Ashley Chapman's case because the lawyers that her family decided to hire were not familiar with chameleon carriers and hours of service. They were just some run-of-the-mill personal injury attorney who said, hey, $1 million sounds good. Yeah. But you get these, Morgan and Morgan attorneys for truck crashes, and they're going to make sure you pay. So it's a lot of times it comes down to the knowledge and the specific industry specific knowledge that a lot of these attorneys have. So it just depends.
Yeah. Doug Lee over on YouTube brings up a good point. If you do make the consequences that severe, that good carriers will step out because the risk is just too much high with fraud and lack of identity or integrity with the current workforce. And that's true, right? Like it is. I think that would possibly cause that to happen, right? The risk versus reward just wouldn't be there anymore for the people who are doing it the right way, right? Like there's unfortunately going to be some fallout with that, definitely.
Yeah, but I can tell you this: like if you are a proactive carrier and you are working with the right people, if you don't know and you're not familiar, you're generally going to hire the right people or bring in the right teams to actually help you protect yourself and make sure that you're running a acceptable risk defensible program, right? Like nobody's running, one of the good things about private equity coming into trucking was private equity uses money from other people to invest and buy trucking company, well, whatever business they're in, but let's just say trucking companies. Yeah. One of the good things about that is their goal is to try to protect that investment, not only for themselves, but for the people who have invested in their fund. So they do not half-ass their programs, right? Like, sorry.
No, dude, I believe in the First Amendment, Rob. You can say whatever you want.
They're not out there half-assing their programs, right? They're hiring the right people to come in and tell them what real risk is and how to prevent that risk and make sure they're building defensible programs. And when they do that, they're making sure that when that catastrophic events happen, they're protected. Like they have all the right policies with all the right verbiage. They've got the right training, the right people running the company. And they want to make sure that investment is 100% protected. So yes, accountability needs to increase, but if you're running your business the right way and you're using the right people and you've built the right systems, process, workflows, you got the right management, you are going to be protected because you have done everything you possibly could to make sure that you've built an acceptable risk program. It's those carriers who kind of skirt those rules and say, we don't need those people. We'll just print something offline and throw a program together. And hey, if we have that crash, hopefully we make it. That's where you run into the issue.
Oh, great points, Rob. Rob, as always, thank you so much for joining me. I love having you and your guys' team over on the show. I'm gonna have to have you guys back on because this is a never ending thing. And, again, we have to be prepared as business owners out there, leaders of organizations. Like, there is no, I wish I would have known that phase when it comes down to to lawsuits and everything else out there.
Yep.
So, Rob, how does anybody reach out to you, though, to find out more about what you guys got going on?
Well, I'm on everything, LinkedIn, X, Facebook, etc. And then you've got trucksafe.com, FreightWaves. My articles are on FreightWaves and just about everywhere else. So
perfect. I appreciate it. If you guys can't find Rob or TruckSafe out there, you might be living under a rock, but I will gladly put you guys in contact with them because they're one of the companies, all of them that work there. I follow them the most because I, as a career broker, I come from a family of truck drivers, but I always try and educate myself out there on what our drivers are up against, because even though there is very limited things I can say to them as a broker, but if I can point them in the right direction to help them stay in business, I'm going to do that. So if you guys can't find them, hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in contact with them. But that's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank it on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang. Window down, yelling out money, anything. Hey, ooh, got the foot on the gas. Pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the